higher wages. Well, I think this is greatly true, as our first speaker stated, due to the free will that workers should all have. Yet, we cannot ignore the economic side of this debate. By giving certain workers increased wages as they give up right to increase the overall average wage, which increases the amount of money which people have to spend in the economy, thus stimulating further economic growth. Just some of these things will occur and more, yet these only have very dismissible consequences, despite what opposition has tried to trick you into believing. The first speaker has tried to state that the employee's right to join a union would be affected, yet under our model, the right to be union would not be impacted at all. Workers could still join unions, still form unions, and still work under unions. Unions would not close down, and they wouldn't be affected as a whole. And they also tried to state that workers would be exploited. Well, if employers ever decided to exploit their workers, that would fall under coercion and discrimination, and any benefit they would gain from the few dollars higher or lower wage would be greatly outweighed by the fines they have to pay or the time they have to spend in jail due to this. And they also tried to make us that us average workers are uninformed of our own jobs. Every detail given to you is given to you in a job contract. All of us receive it before, and we all have to sign it. If something is not included on that contract and the worker and your employer forces you to do it, that is also illegal. This exploitation or unbalance of power is not actually going to happen, as the employer relies just as much on the employee as the employee relies on the employer. Now, moving on. Certain workplace rights exist that are not necessary for workers. A workplace right has been broadly defined as a right or benefit, that employees gain due to a workplace law. Let's just say a worker doesn't need these laws. Why shouldn't it be allowed that they give these up in exchange for higher wages? Such as example, insurance for people who already have insurance, or work leave for people who do not want work leave, or even maternity and paternity leave for people who don't plan on having kids. Let me ask the opposition this question. Why should somebody who doesn't plan on having kids need the right to have maternity or paternity leave when instead they can receive higher wages? And more workers would give up rights for a pay increase than ever. In a 2016 survey by the Times, 1 in 5 employers that are benefiting from getting health cover insurances would give up that health cover in exchange for a higher wage. This is double the percent that would have done this in 2012. But why is this number increasing, you might ask? Well, generally wages are increasing at a much, much slower rate than the cost of healthcare benefits. Yes, please?
If they're giving up their right, their workplace rights, they're giving up their right to collectivize as well. So would you say they're giving up their right to be part of a union?
Well, you are assuming that we are giving up every single right that we have. Under our model, that does not apply. You don't give up rights that are going to greatly affect you in a negative way, but rights that would benefit you, as you have the own choice to give up what rights you want to. Safe Work Australia, a well-known government agency, has recently reported that the total expenditure by employers on health cover amounted to $18.1 billion. Okay, so if an average Australian worked 200,000 years, they would just reach that amount of money. Yet only $15.4 billion is paid out by these same companies. That is a $2.7 billion difference, and that is massive. These insurers are taking money out of the everyday Australians' pockets. The money would be better spent if it was sent directly to the employees instead. If every man, woman, and child in Australia were to receive a portion of this, they would get $120, which frankly is quite a large amount. This economic stimulation every year from letting workers give up unnecessary rights for higher wages is a great benefit, instead of going to wealthy CEOs who work for insurance companies. This also leads to more workers willing to come to Australia due to the higher wages, increasing economic growth. Also, a larger workforce. It is a common belief that if the price of labour is too high, driven by increasing wages, it will shrink the workforce as employers are less able to hire more people. But honestly, I think this is the exact opposite. Senior Fellow of the Institute of Public Affairs, Chris Berg, for his article in The Drum, once quoted that higher wages increase workforce participation, and thus also increases the employment to population ratio. But what does this mean? Well, right now, 70% of the Australian population is currently working in the workforce. That means 30% are not working in the workforce, which means they could be in retirement or studying. So, well, how could we get this extra 30% of the population into the workforce? By increasing their wages, by increasing the incentive they have to join in, increasing our workforce, and thus again increasing economic growth. And this whole process greatly simplifies the economic process. If the money doesn't have to go from the employer's hands to insurers, back to employees, and instead gets paid directly to employees, there'll be a greater benefits overall. Less money is going to be spent. 2.7 billion extra dollars is going to go into the hands of everyday Australians. Thus, from this, the increases in economic growth, increases in average salaries, and increases in average workforce would greatly benefit the economic situation of Australia if we decide to give up certain rights or increased wages. Thank you for listening.